Another one bites the dust. DeSantis out, and former President Donald Trump thus closer to locking in the GOP nomination for president. Rumors abound about who his potential running mate might be. Trump has implied that he's already made the selection and that people will likely not be all that surprised. Trump said, quote, "The person that I think I like is a very good person, a pretty standard person." Trump has remained cagey about his potential pick, though he said last Saturday he, quote, may or may not release something about his vice presidential pick within the next few months. Names floated by those close to Trump are South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem, New York Congresswoman Elise Stefanik, and South Carolina Governor Henry McMaster. Also from South Carolina and potentially on the short list are Senator Tim Scott and Trump rival Nikki Haley. Scott recently endorsed Trump and said that America needed 4 more years of Trump. Take a look.
It comes right down to, what does America need for the next president? It would be 4 more years of Donald Trump. And why do I say that? I say that because I worked with President Trump on really important issues impacting American voters and American families. We worked together. I helped write the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act in 2017, the largest tax decrease in American history. Think about uniting this country. He gave the highest level of funding for historically black colleges and universities in the history of the country.
Now, Scott has said he has not ruled out the position if offered. Also, congratulations to him. He got engaged over the weekend. I saw that.
Well, that's a top.
So the funny thing is there's a lot of South Carolina names being floated, including Tim Scott and Nikki Haley and the governor of South Carolina. I think Tim Scott is one extremely likely pick. I think, as I've said in recent episodes of our show, I am feeling more the Nikki Haley pick potentially. I was not thinking that.
Let's start with Tim Scott. Why do you think he's a likely pick?
He's nationally known. He's nationally on the scene. Obviously, he brings diversity to the ticket in terms of he's a black man. Trump hoping to do better with minority voter. You know, him being black doesn't necessarily mean he suddenly wins them to his cause, but it has that diversity thing, which, as you point out, Republicans say they don't care about, but like to actually do that. Yeah. Black Republican.
You heard Tim Scott there. He's HBCU.
I think he's good on TV. He talks, about very pro-America, pro-patriotism type stuff that makes Republican audiences very happy. Republicans like him a lot. He has a good relationship with Donald Trump. There's really nothing magic or special beyond that. You just need a good working relationship with Trump and looking good on television.
So that being said, what makes you more bullish on the idea that it could be Nikki Haley?
I think that Nikki Haley also brings some diversity in terms of being a woman. She also sets Republican elites at ease. Could be the icing on the cake for, right now we're talking about a lot of Republican business leaders, or just business leaders in general, saying, you know what, maybe Trump isn't that much of a threat, being over anti-Trump. The icing on the cake, the gilding of the lily, whatever you want to call it, might be bringing Nikki Haley into the fold. I say that not as someone who is particularly supportive of her, does not like her foreign policy at all, and thinks that would be the wrong trajectory. Nevertheless, also the poll results for her show she's even more electable than Donald Trump, if we're to believe all the polling. So in a close matchup between Biden and Trump, maybe Trump picks someone who is, on paper at least, in some ways even more popular than him to help get him over the finish line.
In a world where the Republican Party wanted to be most responsible and really set themselves up to beat Democrats in any circumstance, if you did believe there's still some chance that Donald Trump might be stripped from the top of the ticket, having Nikki Haley waiting in the wings as a very electable candidate makes sense. However, I'm not sure that gels with what we've been seeing happening in this primary, with a clear flank of pro-Trump folks dropping out, seemingly with the sole intention or primary intention of making sure that Nikki Haley gets nowhere near the White House. And as this goes on, and knowing Trump's temperament, it's hard for me to believe that he would ignore the more outspoken statements, more critical statements that Nikki Haley has been making in recent days and go ahead. There's some people who could do that, who could look past it. I'm increasingly skeptical, actually, that Donald Trump
I'm going the other way.
Nikki Haley.
I'm increasingly less skeptical. She says she would vote for him. She criticizes him, but she doesn't go fully into some of the never Trump Republican territory, which is like, I would just not vote. I could never stomach him. She makes sure to say that he's still better than Joe Biden, but she thinks she's the best choice of all. If she drops out endorses Trump, it'll be the same thing with DeSantis. Trump will say, thank you, you ran a great race, and thank you for your support, and let's work together.
If he picks Nikki Haley, Tucker Carlson has made his feelings about Nikki Haley extremely clear.
Yeah.
He will lose the support of Tucker Carlson and that wing of the party that still, frankly, he has a lot of influence over. Moreover, the upside of Nikki Haley, the fact that she's a woman, the fact that she's is South Asian, it's not clear that you can't find that kind of diversity in some of the other women that are being floated in the field.
I hope that's the case, because I don't think Nikki Haley.
I
agree with you, but Tucker Carlson. I think most of the Tucker Carlson will hold out, but I think a lot of pro-Trump people who don't like Nikki Haley, if he goes the other way on it, they'll fall in line. That's what the story seems to be.
Let's talk Kristi Noem. I think this is an interesting idea, looking at her kind of policy record. I do wonder if she is a good fit for Donald Trump as he tries to thread the needle of this kind of right-wing populism that was so successful for him in 2016. Donald Trump very famously defended against, rhetorically, not in reality, but defended rhetorically against the idea of cutting Medicare or Medicaid, seemed to give lip service to the idea that we needed some kind of health care plan. He was going to replace Obamacare. He wasn't just going to get rid of any kind of health care support. Kristi Noem has opposed the ACA, worked to repeal it when that wasn't successful, sought to cut some of the most popular provisions, including letting your kids stay on your health care into their 20s. She supported cuts to Medicaid under Paul Ryan, is a deficit hawk at a time when Donald Trump is going to have to confront criticisms, and has been confronting criticisms from Nikki Haley about driving up the deficit $7.8 trillion during his first term. Are you concerned that picking someone like her will expose some of the faults and inconsistencies in Donald Trump's rhetoric versus how he legislated in practice?
For my part, I prefer her and agree with all those differences. I lean toward her camp.
On all due respect, your politics aren't really
I don't know. I'm the one whose vote you're reaching for with a Kristi Noem type pick. I have a lot of. I like her quite a bit. She was a very good, like DeSantis, a COVID governor resisting mandate tyranny. I think she would in many ways be a strong pick. She has unfortunately had some personal scandals that have allegedly been reported on by the Daily Mail involving her marriage and those kinds of things, which I don't know if that matters to Trump or that could sink her potentially. But in a lot of ways, I think she would be a compelling choice to shore up the right-wing base. Maybe for the reasons you spelled out, she's not so appealing to more moderate populist voters. But I mean, the Republican plan is to, on paper at least, what they aspire to do is control the runaway size of government and government spending, and she is someone more rhetorically committed to doing that than Donald Trump is, and they seem to get along. So I think she would be a good choice. Of all the names mentioned, she would be the one I hope he picks the most of all, but I don't know.
It does feel like Donald Trump saying, I'm going to pick what's the words he used, something like normal Republican, someone like that, that's not that surprising, indicates to me that it's going to be someone who's perceived as kind of culturally moderate, perhaps not an Elise Stefanik type, who has made so much public hay of the Harvard, Claudine Gay, pro-Palestinian speech on campus debacle, someone who's dabbled as much in the culture wars. I do think there's a strong case that both Vivek Ramaswamy's failure in the race and Ron DeSantis' failure is in some ways a referendum on how far the woke train, or anti-woke train, should I say, will take you. And Donald Trump in his statement did seem to be signaling he's going to go for someone who's perhaps a little bit less controversial. And so then I do wonder if Henry McMaster actually, remember, Tim Scott went out in not the most glorious way. He's someone who creates his own kind of gaffe machine.
Was he?
Yes. Remember, he went out, what was the last controversy?
That he resigned on TV or something, but or not resigned.
No, it was the abortion question. Remember that Tim Scott got that was a problem in the last debate that he was in.
I think
he's not as good as threading the needle and creating left ambiguity that people can project on, in the same way that Donald Trump is.
when I hear that Trump statement was a standard Republican, my choice won't be that surprising to you, that kind of thing, all of those words to me suggest a Scott pick. Scott will bother no one in the Republican
I understand that, but I just wanted to talk briefly about Henry McMaster, he's like the Tim Kaine of this lineup. He is that moderate choice, the guy that you go to, the gray-haired white guy that doesn't rock any boats. A governor of a state. I mean, truly, the blandness of it all does seem to be what recommends him. And if Donald Trump's choices in 2016 are any indication, if there's still some feeling that he has to shore up some kind of, not quite evangelical, but more socially conservative, moderate, regular vote, as well as the people who just want there to be less ruckus, generally speaking, who are more politically moderate, then it does seem to me that a choice like that, you don't get into any of the identity politics stuff. You're not going to have the portion of the base that maybe doesn't love that Nikki Haley is non-white or doesn't love that Vivek Ramaswamy is non-white. We saw some of the polling coming out after Iowa where people were saying, well, they didn't quite trust Ramaswamy. He reminded them of 9/11. I do wonder if at the end of the day, there's still not a lot of safety to be found in having a very typical, both demographically and politically, candidate.
No, I think if anything, this McMaster person, who I don't know much about, might be a fine choice, but just doesn't have a flashy character about it. I mean, Trump's a performer. He's an entertainer. Doesn't he want the VP announcement to be a spectacle in some way?
Does he?
I think this
Is
would
that
be
what he wanted in 2016?
Underwhelming.
Is there a record of any indication that he likes to share the stage with anybody?
No, but in that case, the Pence pick was supposed to put the Republican Party at ease.
Yes.
Obviously, he ended up not liking Pence at all.
But that's quite frankly what he's just said he wants to do, that he wants to have a standard Republican.
But you can do that with Tim Scott or Nikki Haley, and they're, I think, more acceptable.
I mean, quite definitionally, they're not really standard Republicans for a whole host of reasons. So, including demographically, I gotta say. So, it'll be interesting what happens.
What do you say? Republicans are going to not vote for Tim Scott because he's black or something?
Some of them won't. Correct.
I don't think that's a problem. The party is.
All right. Well, people can see. I don't know why you're saying that like it's bizarre. Donald Trump became a political figure in large part because he was leading the birtherism movement with Barack Obama. There's a long history of people. We just saw exit commentary in the caucuses with Vivek Ramaswamy, where really regrettably, people saw him ultimately as untrustworthy. They said that he reminded him as a man of Indian descent, having obviously nothing to do with 9/11. All right. Well, you seem to think no one has those concerns. Obviously, it's a very small caucus.
A small number of people.
All right. So that's a concern. Some people in the United States of America, I hate that it's true, but if you're going to sit here and deny to me that no one has antipathy for voting for women, no one has antipathy voting for black people, no one has antipathy voting for South Asian people or anything else, I think, if you believe that, I have a bridge to sell you. But these are all, I think, concerns that are going to have to.
Literally no one, but it's not a sizable enough problem. In fact, it is an asset in some ways to hopefully bring in new people to the Republican coalition.
Right.
That should be the affirmative plan.
Well, we'll see what Donald Trump ultimately decides on. Stick around. We're rising for you right after this.